Rugby World Cup 2023, folks. England up against Chile this weekend from Lille. We're going to go through some squads, some stats, predictions, and you guys can let us know your thoughts. There's no recent history between these sides to talk of because it's the first ever meeting between the sides. They're obviously in kind of different positions. England are 2 from 2. They are the sixth side in the world up against Chile, who are at their first World Cup. They haven't managed to taste success yet, having lost to Japan and to Samoa. If there's one area Chile's been a little bit vulnerable, it's been up in the forwards, but they do have some really, really exciting backs. England, well, they've been putting a bit of boot to ball, and there's been a little bit of criticism of them for maybe not being as exciting as they could be, but supposedly the weather is supposed to be a little bit better for this game, so we'll see if they are able to kind of show us a little bit of flair. To be honest, I think winning rugby is the best kind of rugby, and so far at the World Cup, 2 from 2, Borthwick, I think, is doing all right. He has made some changes, and it's a little bit of an attacking flair at fullback with Marcus Smith up from the bench to get a start at fullback in place of Freddie Stuart, who is rested this week. That's certainly a big change. Like Freddie Stuart, you play him because he's a big, tall lump, and he catches high balls for days, and he's good at running on to kicks, and he chases high balls, and he's, fairly physical guy, whereas Marcus Smith, usually a 10, great offloading game, great kicker of the ball, good running game with that goose step of his, so proper change. One would expect to see a little bit of excitement from Marcus Smith at the back. We also have Owen Farrell back from his suspension, so he is starting the game at 10. He's got pretty big shoes to fill, with George Ford having been a revelation. I say revelation, we know what George Ford can do. It's not exactly surprising, but he's been phenomenal. The first couple of games he's played for England at this World Cup, so he's the form 10, so there's a little bit of pressure on Owen Farrell to step up and play well. They asked him directly about that in the press conference, and he's just like, well, he's playing well, it's good, isn't it? So, yeah, he's not expressed that he's feeling any extra pressure, but maybe that's a good problem for Steve Borthwick to have, is to have a few different options at 10. But with Farrell as captain, he's kind of committed to playing him somewhere, be it 10 or at 12. Speaking of 12, Ollie Lawrence is up from the bench at 12. Elliot Daly switches to 13. Elliot Daly has been one of the kind of more able to get into space of the England backs. And Lawrence, we know what a powerhouse he can be. So we'll see how he goes up against the Chilean midfield. But defensively, they've actually been pretty sound. Arundell comes in on the right wing, and he's a proper excitement machine as well. Likewise, Max Malins comes into the 23 on the left, and Danny Kerr comes in at number 9. So it is a much changed back line. I don't think anybody in that back line starts with the same jersey number they played last week, and half of them didn't even play last week. Forwards-wise, Bevan Rod comes in at loose head. I think it's his first game of this World Cup. Theo Dan also takes the spot of Jamie George. I'm excited to see what Theo Dan can do because he's had very limited game time, with Jamie George being a bit of a hog in that area. But Dan seems to have a pretty decent running game about him, which is pleasing to see. The kind of likes of that Dan Sheehan mould, although I haven't seen him enough to really judge. And then Kyle Sinckler continues on at tight head. David Ribbans into the 23 in the second row. George Martin's up from the bench. Lewis Ludlam switches to number 6. Jack Willis is in at number 7. And then Billy V up from the bench at number 8. So some of the kind of key performers, not just George Ford's down to the bench, but also like Ben Earl. He's your top tackler, top carrier for England. He drops to the bench. Chessum drops to the bench. Joe Marchant drops to the bench. Jack Walker's into the 23. Marler drops to the bench with that header of his. Maybe they'll miss that bit of go forward. Will Stewart's still there. Ben Youngs is still there. So yeah, it's largely a changed lineup. They did kind of ask Steve Borthwick about all the changes, but he's very coy. He's not like Andy Farrell, who answers questions quite directly. He just said, these guys are going to play well, and I don't want to quote him because I can't remember what he said because it was all very, very safe in the way he answered the questions. But yeah, he expects these guys to do a job. He wouldn't even really comment on the differences between Marcus Smith and Freddie Stuart, which I found bizarre because they're different players. But anyway, for Chile, they have also made a few changes, but most of their big guns that I'm used to seeing are still in the squad. They have brought in Luis at loose head. They've brought in Bohm at hooker. Ditas is still there at tight head. He has been really impressive. Scored a try, and he's a bit of a big unit. Clemente Saavedra switches to the second row. Iceman's up from the bench. Captain Martin Sigren, who's been really impressive, is still there at 6. Really hard-working player. 12 from 13 tackles in that last game. Silva's at 7. Escobar's at 8. Both those guys up from the bench. Benjamin Videla, who only got his first game last week, is now the starting 9. So there's no Torrealba. Rodrigo Fernandez continues on at 10. He's one of the he's probably the face of the Chilean rugby team alongside Martin Sigrid. I mean, Fernandez alongside being that famous try that he scored against the US. I mean, it just even last week, 60 plus meters and 6 defenders beaten. He's just fun to watch. He's a running 10. Garafulic is there at 12 alongside Domingo Saavedra. I mentioned them in terms of their tackling, like 11 from 12 for Garafulic and then 8 from 10 for Saavedra in the midfield last week. So they're pretty solid. And then like Domingo Saavedra had 30 plus run meters, so was able to get a bit of go forward. Cristobal Game is there on the right wing, who comes into the 23 alongside Franco Velarde. So it is a changed back 3 with Francisco Urroz coming in at 15 as well. So Ariaza is down to the bench. So yeah, it's a bunch of changes for the Chilean side as well. They've got a couple of new props on the bench. They've got Thomas Orcard comes into the 23 as one of your backup forwards. Yeah, they've had to change things up. I mean, they're halfway through their campaign, and I guess there's a chance to give some other guys a bit of experience at this level. Predictions-wise, England are predicted to blow the Chileans off the park. 50 points according to the bookies, 47 points according to the rugby forecast algorithm. Maybe we will see a little bit, I don't want to say less kicking, but maybe fewer kind of up and unders with Freddie Stuart not being there. But Marcus Smith can certainly find space behind on-rushing defenders. So it may be a different kind of kicking game from England in this one. But certainly if you watched Chile against Japan or against Samoa, you would have noted how both those sides were able to bully the Chilean guys up front. And that's a pretty, generally tier 1, tier 2, it's a pretty safe way to make sure you keep the scoreboard ticking over, get yourself a bonus point. I would be surprised if England don't go down that track. I expect a few more tries from England, if nothing else. But we'll see, man. Chile plays some pretty exciting rugby. Hopefully they're able to get themselves on the board. Jaco Paper is the ref for this one. It's a 5:45 kickoff at Lille, which I think is 4:45 in the morning here in New Zealand. I will decide how my sleep schedule is going to go before I commit to anything. But yeah, hope you guys enjoy the game. It should be a cracker. If you guys are on the Steve Borthwick bandwagon, want to get yourself some England rugby gear to support your team, link down in the description for England Rugby Store. They are an affiliate of the channel, so anything you buy using that link, there's alarms going off for England Rugby Store. 2 cents gets some commission. Happy days. But yeah, you guys let us know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.